So what's the trick to saving you thousands of dollars on your air conditioning system? Well, it's checking your capacitors, capacity or specifications, or if they're inside specification, every 6 months. And I do this myself religiously. I use a little $30 meter, so you don't need a lot of tools or expensive stuff to do this. And I've never suffered a capacitor blowing on me or my AC going out since I started doing this. So basically what I'm going to show you in this video is some preventive maintenance. I'm Richard Lloyd. This is a Richard Lloyd USA YouTube channel. Thank you for coming and watching. And in this video, I'm just going to cover how to test these capacitors and why. Well, capacitors in your AC system, over time, they degrade until they fail completely. Now, way back, I made a video, and I'll put a link up here for it, on how to replace or actually diagnose if it's your capacitor that's blown. It's a great video. It's done really well for me. But the assumption in that video is that you're going to wait until the capacitor blows. Well, there is a problem with that, and you can see here on what I've written that capacitors degrade over time. And the problem with that is as they degrade, it causes problems with your system. It actually wears your system down. So let me show you what I mean. So as capacitors degrade out of specification, which is 5 to 6% of their actual rated amount, and that's written right on a label on the front of the capacitor, and I'll show you how to determine what that range is here in this video. But as they degrade, your condenser, your compressor, and your air handler blower, all of which are using a capacitor to actually make them run more efficiently, will start running hotter and hotter and hotter. They will lose their efficiency. They will lose their torque, which means they'll spin slower, which means you'll get less cooling capacity out of your system, which also means now they're running hotter, they're running slower, and they're going to run longer. So they're going to run hotter longer. On top of that, you're going to use a lot more electricity because now your motor is inefficient, right? So, lots of reasons to do this regularly. Now, let's see where it is. Right here. I just recently checked my capacitor on mine, and it's this one right here. And though it's still good, it was on the very, very bottom of its basic specification. So I took it out and replaced it with a new one, and promptly bought myself a spare, just so that I don't have any problems in the future if that one unexpectedly burns out. Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. All right, so the other part is this: if your capacitor completely blows, like no longer works, it hasn't even, like these, I have one here that when I bought the house was just an awful mess inside my system, which is another reason to go check your inside your panel, inside your outside condenser. This one here was completely wrong, and it was at 33 microfarads, so it was still working. Now, everything on your AC system will be functioning, and you just don't know that it's actually not being as efficient as it should be, and that it's running hotter than it should be. Okay, because everything continues to work. So again, it is really deceptive, and I think it's a big mistake to wait for your capacitor to blow, because who knows how long this capacitor was running at 33 microfarads where it should have been running at 40. And by the way, it was the wrong capacitor in the first place. It was supposed to be a 40, and this is a 45. All sorts of things that are wrong. I'll show you that the nightmare that I found when I opened up the condenser, but that's another reason why you want to check as well, because you just don't know what the person who last owned your house or what their tech did to the machine. So you should be checking it out just as well. And that's another caveat, is that when I bought my house, I got a home inspection and an AC system tune-up and inspection, and so when you see what I found, you'll see why I'll never use that AC company again, because that guy should not have left this thing the way it was. So yeah, you want to make sure that you do all this, and you want to make sure that you do it. Well, I do it twice a year, and because my system's a heat pump, which means that It works as a heater as well as an AC unit. But regardless, I mean, most people are using these systems quite a bit of the year, so you should check them regularly, at least before the start of every summer, just to make sure that you're within specification. Another good bonus about doing this is, again, I've had it for 4 years, and the capacitor, you know, lasted at least 4 years before it went out of, basically hit the specification limit. And usually they're designed to last around 6 years. At least this one that I bought as a spare is supposed to, made in America. 6.8 years it's supposed to run, 60,000 hours, 94% of the time. Now understand, 6% of the time it won't make that cycle. So, you know, that's why you check them, because you don't know which one's going to be the one that doesn't make the 6-year rating. And like I said, they degrade over time, and they're fairly cheap. I think I paid like $12 for this one. So, you know, just keep it on the shelf, and you'll be safe and you'll be ready. And in fact, if you do what I'm telling you to do in this video, you won't have to replace it every, you know, when it blows. You'll replace it, you know, once every 2 or 3, in my case, 4 years. Now, these have been very hot years too, right? So, you know, it's lasted quite well. Go to the next slide. Here's the things you're going to need to get done, the things, you know, the checking of your capacitor in this video. I will put a slide in here after this one with the obligatory safety disclaimer. I take no responsibility for anything you do or you know, what happens if you follow this video. Just be careful, follow manufacturer's specifications, and, you know, be safe, okay? Tools that you're going to require. You're going to require, of course, you may require a capacitor. So even if you don't have one, order a spare, even if you don't need one, okay? Always have a spare. You never know when these things are going to pop, and usually at the worst times possible. You're going to need a meter, and I'll put a link to this in the video description below, as well as the capacitor. This is under $30, well worth the money, and it's useful in a lot of other places, you know, outside of your AC system. But, you know, if you buy it just for doing this piece of preventive maintenance, it's well worth it. It's got a clamp meter on it, which is useful for checking amperages, and non-contact voltage, which I'll show you in the video as well. And a flathead screwdriver, a 5/16 nut driver, or an 8mm nut driver, as I show here. I use them in the video. And let's continue on here. All right, the next thing you need to do before you do anything, take a picture of what they call the boilerplate, or the sticker that shows you what kind of machine or model number and the manufacturer is on the back of your condenser. Actually take pictures of everything that you do, as it's you know, that way you don't have to remember where the wires go and all that. Take a lot of pictures, okay? Before you take any wires apart or anything apart, take pictures of it. And, you know, now we got cell phones, so you can take as many pictures as you wish. Make sure you cover it all. Make sure you can see all the wiring and everything and where it all goes, okay? And I'll show you that in the video in the future. But as you can see here, mine's a Goodman, and the part number is CPKJ361AB. Now, why is that significant? Because, you know what? Here's the thing I was thinking when I was making this video, because it happened to me when I first bought this house. You can assume that whoever last serviced your AC system got it right. In other words, used the right capacitor and so on. In my case, they didn't. They used a 45 microfarad where you needed a 40, and they used a 10 microfarad where they needed a 5. So for the compressor, they used this one, wrong, and for the fan, they used this one, wrong again. So, you know, you don't know what you're going to find in there, and I'll show you some pictures of what I found, because it's scary. But anyway, the point here was to take that model number, CPKJ361AB, all right, and put it into Google. So got a lot going on. CPKJ361AB. Okay, CPKJ361AB. -1AB. Now, why you want to do this is, when you do that, you're going to see all the parts for my heat pump, which is a Goodman. So I couldn't find, well, I eventually found more or less the wiring diagrams, but I can't find for the life of me at Goodman's site what the capacitor should be. You'd think they'd have a reference there, but they don't. But Repair Clinic sells parts for this model, so I just clicked on that. I scrolled down to the actual capacitor, which is right here. And you can see when you zoom in here that it is a 40-5 microfarads, plus or minus 5%. And the weird thing is here, if you go down further, they actually sell a competitive dual run capacitor, and dual run means that it's got two capacitors in one case, for $14 that has more or less the same tolerance, and it's $14, you know, so not $57. So yeah, look around, you know, I bought mine on Amazon for less than this, for about $10, $12. So, and I'm quite happy with what I got. So find out what your actual capacitor is supposed to be. In my case, it's a 40-5, which means it's a 40 microfarad and a 5 microfarad dual run. So that's why you want to do that. Now, in order to find out what the actual specification limits are, I show the math here on several capacitors. One's a single run, which is the one I took out from my lovely machine when I bought the house that shouldn't have been there in the first place. And I can't wait to show you those pictures. And here's the math. So I'll leave it up here for everybody to see, and you can just use it as a template if you wish to show you how to find out what the actual limits are. So let's go with this simple one here. This is the 10 microfarad at 6%. All you do is take 10 and multiply by 0.06, which is 6%, and you get a 0.06. Plus or minus, which means it can be above or below. So in that case, you can have a limit of 10.6 microfarads and 9.4 microfarads. If you're anywhere near that, I mean, if you're within those limits, then the capacitor is still good. But if you're within the lower limit, because I find they degrade, they don't go up. And if you're at 9.4, for instance, I would just order a spare, or order another one and a spare, and put the new one in, because you're just like, almost there, almost out of whack. And in my case, mine was 9.6% out of whack, not 6%, 9.08 microfarads, as you can read there. So, again, okay, here's where it gets good. Look at what I found inside my AC unit when I opened it. What is this? You say, well, that's my AC unit, and a couple of wires going into a paper box with some packing inside of it. And if you look at it here, you can see that whoever serviced this left the capacitor in the box, stuffed it under the cover, and closed it up. And that's how mine was running. And it was, of course, the wrong one, right? So there's the box outside of the AC system. Just crazy. There's the insulation it was wrapped in. So it was getting really hot in that box. It actually yellowed the insulation on the other side. And then there's the capacitor. And again, the wrong one. So this is why you want to make sure that you check these things, because you just don't know what you're going to find. And of course, because I did the search on Google for mine, I found that it was, the wrong one. And that, crazy thing is, they actually had the right fan capacity on the wrong capacitor that they put for the actual compressor. Just all sorts of wrong, right? So you want to be within spec for sure, because otherwise it'll run hot, inefficiently, and wear out fast. Now, if they totally die, if they come right off, right? In other words, the capacitor turns off. Go back here. What will happen? And hopefully you're home when the capacitor blows. What will happen is that as the motor continues to try and start, even though the capacitor is done, it will heat up more and more and more and more. And it can heat up enough that it'll melt the windings on the motor, the coils, or the insulation on the coils. And that will short out the motor, and then that's it. You'll either need a compressor or a fan or both. Okay, so that's another reason why you want to check your capacitors, because not only is it going to save you electricity and make your system run quicker, it will run better and more efficiently. It will also ensure that you stay on top of it, so the capacitor never blows on you, and it never does, or go into a situation where you're risking your actual machine, your air conditioning system, to the point of replacement. Because mine is my AC unit is like 1999. Okay, so it's basically, if this dies, I need to buy a new one, and that's like $8, $9, $10,000 at this point. And I don't rather not do that. So protect your investment. And if you're a real estate investor and you got 14 houses or 12 houses, I'd go to all of them and check the capacitors and replace all of them, and then get yourself a sheet full so that you know which address needs what, and get spares for each one, and put one in the air handler closet, and so that whenever you need it, all you got to do is drive there, pick it up, put it in, you're done. And hopefully you'll never need to actually replace it because it's blown. But if it does blow, because like I said, the specification is 60,000 hours 94% of the time, so 6% of the time they will not last that long. Okay, so there is a chance. So that's why I do what I do, and why I'm showing you this video, because preventive maintenance on your air conditioning system is obviously a good idea. Yeah, craziness here that we found, right? Just can't believe it. Okay, so here's another slide, basically showing you how far off what I found when I opened up my unit was. And I kept them around for 4 years just to show you, right? And also to make this video to help people save themselves from cooking their AC unit because their capacitors are out of spec, but the machine's still working. Okay, so go next here. Okay, so I'll put some more slides towards the end. What now is called TLDR, too long did not read, but it basically, it's a more technical breakdown of what I'm saying right now, of what happens to AC systems when these things, the capacitors, degrade. Okay, so going to show you now. We're going to go and turn off the AC system. I'll show you how to safely get into the system and safely shut it down, take the cover off, and test your capacitor to see if it's good. All right, before we do anything anywhere, we want to turn off the thermostat, make sure it does not trigger an event in no matter what. So mine is a Nest thermostat. You might have a different one with manual controls. Sometimes they have a little slider that goes to off, but you want to make sure that the thermostat is set to off. So there's no chance of a random event of the thermostat telling the compressor or the condenser outside to turn on while you're working on it, regardless. But we're going to shut it all down. And number one thing to do is turn the thermostat off. So here we're on eco. We'll go over here to the waves here and choose off. There you go. Now, again, that's on the Nest. All thermostats are not the same. So whatever way that yours turns off, turn it off. This guarantees that, that this won't trigger anything. So we're going to turn off at the panel next, the electrical panel, and then we're going to turn off the electrical disconnect out by the compressor or the condenser, which is the outside unit. Okay, I'm at the panel, which is in my garage. In my old house, the panel was outside the house for the air conditioner. So, your controls for it can be in different places. But clearly here, mine is labeled AC, and it's a dual pole switch or breaker. And on is in my case, is to the right, off is to the left. So we're going to switch it over to off like that. And that's it. The power to both the inside unit and the outside unit right now should be turned off. We'll check it. But next, also, we're going to go out to the condenser. And there is an outside box there called the disconnect, which we're going to also deactivate to make sure triply sure that there's no power on there before we take any of the panels or any of the system apart to look at the capacitor. All right, I'm outside by my condenser, and this panel here is what we're going to have to remove to get at the capacitor. You can see the power cord going to the disconnect box, which we're going to open up next and turn off There are different ways of disconnecting your AC, so I will show you how mine does it. It has a switch. Others have a pull tab on it, so I'll edit the video and show you what the pull tab ones look like. And basically, you just pull the tab on those and set it aside. All right, my disconnect box does not have a lock on it. Yours does. You're gonna have to take it off. And basically, what you do is push down on this tab, lift on the door, and then just lift the door up like this. And then I'm going to get a different angle. Well, this one's pretty basic. It's an on and off switch. So basically what we're going to do is just turn it to the off side like this. There's other types of disconnects that have a pull tab that you pull the pull tab off, and then that disconnects it, and just put the pull tag or pull tab aside and leave it out until you're done, and then put it back in to turn it back on again. But mine's a switch, as you can see, on off, so now it's off. So make sure that yours is off however it turns off, and I will edit the video to show you what those pull tab ones look like. All right, I've turned the electricity back on at the breaker panel and back out here on this switch just to show you a function on my meters that it's a really nice safety feature. It's called non-contact voltage and detection. So basically what they'll do, you can see that the switch is on, is they will sense if there's electricity on the circuit. See the green light, and it's flashing, so we know there's electricity there, right? So that's a really nice feature on these meters. A little more up there, right? So real nice, because you may think you've turned it off, but it could still be live. You never know what somebody did coming in behind you. So there we go. That one has it too, and you can see that it's sensing it as well. Okay, so yeah, NCV, both these meters have it. They're fairly inexpensive. I'll put links for that in the video description below. And we're gonna shut this all back down again, just like I just showed you, and we're gonna take the panel off. All right, we're gonna take this panel off to get at the capacitor on my machine. Yours may be different, but there's a panel like this. You see the cord going into a box, basic metal box. So what do we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3 more on the back screws, which are basic screws. You could use a flathead on them. I'm going to use an 8mm nut driver. I don't know what the imperial or English size would be for that. Some 5/8 or something. I have no idea, but 8mm does it for me, and a flathead would do it as well. So I'll use that. Okay, and around the back, this will not fit, so I will use a ratchet and an 8mm socket. There we go. That last screw was a little tough to get out. But on the back panel, you'll see diagrams. So you might want to take a picture of those with your camera, get a good view so that you know what you're doing, so that you have some sort of explanation of what's going on inside your unit. Also, this diagram has color coding for the wires, which may be helpful for you. And on the other side of the panel, there's some charging and discharging stuff. You might want to take a picture of that as well, because this stuff fades over time. It's a paper sticker. All right, so there we got it open. Mess of wires, which is normal. Capacitors right here, and being careful not to touch anything, because I haven't tested to see if there's any voltage left on this, or if there's anything going in, but I will in a minute, and I'll show you how I do that. And capacitors should be discharged before testing, and also they should be disconnected from these wires as well. So take a lot of pictures, because the color coding is all very important, and you want all the wires going back exactly where they went, came out from. And in this case, we're just going to disconnect this capacitor to test it. And outside of that, you want to do this just to make sure that, as preventive maintenance, that you have a reliable capacitor going into summer or going into winter, in my case, because summer's almost over here, but actually not. But this is a heat pump, so it works in the winter as well. So I want to make sure that this capacitor is not close to failing or anywhere near its limits. And you know, again, if it is, I'll just replace it. But you know, another reason is you want to look in here to make sure everything's cool, is because when I first took this off, this capacitor was the wrong one, and there was another one stuffed up here in a box, and I'll show you pictures of that in a minute. That was the wrong one as well. So I had the wrong dual run capacitor, and somebody stuck another one up here for the fan, and which is not necessary because there's two capacitors in this, one for the compressor and one for the fan. So I have no idea what was going on, but that is personally my another good reason to take this apart, just to see what somebody before you did. And if you look down here, down there, you'll see a placard that shows you your model number. Now you want to take a picture of that as well, and find out what your model number is, because it will tell you what the capacitor, well, when you Google your model number, you'll find a bunch of people selling parts for your model number, and it will tell you which capacitor you should be using for this. In my case, it's a 40 microfarad, 5 microfarad dual run capacitor. Now some of these machines do have a start capacitor. Mine does not. It has like basically it has this start circuit here. And but if you do have a start capacitor, those need to be discharged, and so does, you know, basically so do these. And I'll put a video up here to show you how to discharge those capacitors and properly, and basically short out the leads, right? But on a dual run capacitor like this, usually the motor, when they shut down, they discharge the capacitor anyway. But test it. Don't assume that it's dead. Test it, and you do that by using your meter, and we'll do that in a second. All right, now we're looking at the input here. This is the conduit that comes into this box. I don't know if you can really see it, but my finger's on it right there. And it comes through out of here, and there's a bunch of wires, actually 3 wires. You see a white one, I believe it was black one here, yeah, black one, and ground right there. And those are 3 wires coming in. Now, first thing to do is check to see if we have any power there at all. So we'll set the meter to AC, like that. And then we will see where those 2 wires terminate, which is right here on these 2 screws or nuts, or bolts, whatever. I think they're screws. And we're going to put our meter on those 2. So 1 on 1. That's the contactor, kind of a relay. And we can see on our meter, it's a tight space for me, that it says 0. There's nothing there. So there's no power going to that. And on this one, you could use the non-contact voltage setting, right, like we did on the box. And you can see nothing, no beeping, no, you know, no power at all. I could show you that working here just by turning it on again, but really it doesn't matter. I tested those 2 wires coming in, and there's nothing there. You could also test from each one of those nuts to ground. So we'll go do that. There, this is the green wire here, or the box would be ground anyway. So anywhere on the box, and I'm getting nothing there either. So basically, it's a dead stick. There's nothing here. Next, I'm going to check the voltages on the capacitor. Make sure we're okay there. And I'm using DC here. So let's do that. As I said before, generally the capacitors are discharged by the fan and the compressor as they shut off. But you never know. What if there's something wrong and somehow there's a charge on it? So what I'm going to do is take my DC voltage from the common, which is and it's neat, actually, on most of the capacitors I see, the common is the one with 4 tangs sticking out of it. The Herm is the one with 3 tangs sticking out of it. And the fan is the one with 2 tangs sticking out of it. Now, that's not, I don't think it's code, but that's what I find on them. But if you can't, if yours is different, just usually it's labeled here on the bottom. And mine is common, Herm, fan, and again, it corresponds to 4 tabs, 3 tabs, 2 tabs. And I'm going to just check voltage across from common to fan and common to Herm. And I know you guys are probably saying, oh, but it's AC. Yeah, I already know there's no power here, but the capacitor will be discharging AC. right? And DC, sorry, because that's all they can store. Um, okay, so nothing on those two. So I have it on, I don't know if you can see it, but common and fan, and nothing on those two either. So there's no voltages there. I mean, you can be safe and discharge, basically jumper those across each other just to be sure. Now, the next thing you want to do is take a lot of pictures of where all the wires go to which tang and so on, just so you're sure that you put it back together again correctly after you disconnect the wires, because what we're checking for here is capacitance on that capacitor, and we can't do that with the wires connected. So because they go to motors, and that changes everything. So I'm going to disconnect those wires, and then we'll put it back together. All right. Currently going to test the compressor side, which is common to Herm. Okay. And so as you can see, I'm putting my leads there. My capacitor is, sorry, my meter is on capacity or capacitor. This is a 40 microfarad, 5 microfarad dual run. So this should, at 5%, come in within 2 microfarads. And if you look, you can see, if I can get this right on the screen while I'm doing this. Give me a sec. There, I'll just hold the value. You can see it, I'm 38. So I'm just on the lower limit of that capacitor before it's beyond its rated capacity. So it should be within 2 microfarads of 40. It's at 38, so it's at the very low limit. So I'll be replacing that capacitor just on that. So I'm going to test the other side, which is the fan side. So let me put the leads on it. And when you're testing for capacitance, you need to hold them there for a second for the meter to catch up to it, or to actually read the capacitor correctly. This one's fairly quick, and I will put links to it in the video description below. Okay. And the other side at 5% would be 4.75. So on the fan side, that capacitor is fine. But since it's a dual run, you replace, you don't keep using one side while the other side is failing. You basically know that one side's failing, then that's enough to know that that capacitor needs to be replaced. So this is why you want to do this preventive maintenance, because if you go beyond those capacities, or beyond those limits, for instance, 4.75 on the fan, and uh, 38 microfarads on the compressor, things are going to start running hotter. And then when they run hot, they wear out faster. They use more energy. They're less efficient. They don't cool as quickly as they should. All around, just bad. So use more energy. Use more. You overheat the motors. They run much hotter than they should, and they're not as efficient as they should be. All for, in this case, about a $15 part. So I'm replacing this capacitor next. So basically, all I'm going to do is just take that screw out there, take this capacitor off, and put an American-made capacitor, which I found. I'll show you that in the video, and I'll put links to it in the video description below. But basically, that one's done as far as I'm concerned. Yes, and guess what? My AC still works. It still blows cold air. Everything's good. But this is beyond its rated capacity. Therefore, it's on its way out, and I need to replace it. Now, if like I said, if you'd have found out, or well, I'll show you pictures of what I found when I first opened this up, which is, like, as far as I'm concerned, one of the primary reasons you should open it up, just to see what the last person who was in here did. So I'm going to put the other capacitor in here. It's very basic. I'm going to unscrew this one, screw the other one in, and then we'll go from there. Oh, another thing I want to mention, you see a little bit of corrosion on this. That's not a bad thing. But if you see any breaks, any fluid leaking out, any holes in it, or the top bulging, then don't even bother. Even if it passes the test, replace it. It shouldn't be leaking any oil from the inside of it, and it shouldn't be bulging in any way, or deformed in any way, or broken in any way. So if you see any physical deformities or damage, a little bit of rust like this is nothing. But if you see, like, like I said, oil, breaks, cracks, or a top that's bubbling up, just get rid of it. Replace it with a new one. So here's the new one I'm going to put in here, and real nice. This is made in the USA, and it was the cheapest, one of the cheapest ones on Amazon. And I checked the spec sheet on it, and it's good for 60,000 hours, 94% of the time. So that would be 6.8 years of life on this thing. So I'm pretty confident it's a good quality capacitor, but time will tell. And Texas is really rough on this stuff because it gets really hot here, so it runs a lot. So I'm gonna put it in. Okay, one more thing I want to show you is the 4 tangs. That goes to common. You can see a C there. Hopefully you can. I don't know. Yeah, there it is. C. The 3 tangs go to Herm. You can see it there. There it is. And the 2 tangs go to fan. All right, so we're going to follow that and then put it in. Okay, I'm going to have to probably drill another hole on this bracket, make it a little tighter to make it fit. So I'll do that, then we'll lock it in there. Actually, the other side of that had a bunch of holes in it, so I'm going to take it, reverse it, because it's a lot easier to adjust on this side. All right, got that screw in the back real nice. I got all these holes to choose from. That's real handy for me. It gives me a nice tight fit. Let's see what we got. Which one of these will work? It looks like that's going to work. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm going to my drill for this. Let's do that. Yeah. And I don't mind that down a little bit. Nice. There we go. Nice and snug. Beautiful. An adjustment there. I'll put the wires back in. And okay, so all my reds go to, I already memorized this already. All the reds go to the common, which is the one with 4 tangs. That way I don't have to read it. So I'll do that right now. 4, and there's one brown one going to that, and I had that over here. So let's put that in there. Actually, better the way this way. The brown one. There we go. Make sure they're all nice and clipped in. All the yellow wires go to the Herm. So just so you guys can see, gotta keep them out of the way of what I'm doing. Like that. And hopefully you guys can see it. Let's see. And then hopefully you can see it. There we go. Yeah, I'm a little off. Hold on. Okay. So in my case, all the reds went to the common or C, except for one brown that goes, I believe, to the fan. And another brown goes here to the 5. I've tested this capacitor already, but I could test it again. But it is within specifications. It's brand new. And that's another nice thing about having the meter. When you get a new capacitor, you can test it as soon as it comes in the door, and you can know whether you have a good one or not, and send it right back if it's bad, right? So now that I have my spare put in, and this one's basically done, what I'm going to do is order myself another one of these to have spare in on my shelf, because I really like that it's American made. I like that it's within spec, and I like that it has a spec sheet that I can download and look at that tells me it's good for 60,000 hours. So I'm going to put this brown cable on this one here. There we go, just like that, nice and tight. And now, before I put it all back together, I will test it out and turn it on with the, what do you call it, the side panel off, and then I'll put the panel back on. All right, there it is, humming along nicely. It's actually quieter than it was with the other capacitor, and that makes sense because it's running more efficiently, right? But it did get a little quieter. I've got it apart at the moment, but I will put the panel back on over here, right there, and then I'll wrap up this video. All right, that's it for my video. If you like this video and helped you out in some way, do me a huge favor, give me a thumbs up at the bottom here. I really appreciate it. It helps my channel on YouTube and it helps it grow. So yeah, do me a huge favor and give me a thumbs up. In the video description below, you'll see links to all the stuff that I used in this video. I used my spare now is an American-made NTE capacitor, and I'm impressed with the fact that I could find a web page with the specifications for the capacitor, so I'll put that in the video description below, as well as everything else. In the comments section, any questions or suggestions, especially video suggestions, put them down there. I read them all the time and I do respond to them quite regularly. You know, understand I can't respond to all of them. I have tens of thousands of comments, but I do go over them regularly, so I appreciate those. And again, if you got a video suggestion, I make videos out of those suggestions all the time. I really appreciate that as well. On top of that, if you like my content and you want to see more, do me a huge favor, hit the subscription button. Then as part of the process, there'll be a bell icon. Click the bell icon, that's the notification icon, and you'll be basically notified every time I put up a new video, and you can watch it at your own leisure. Once again, and like always, thank you so much for watching and supporting my efforts here on YouTube. Stay healthy, stay happy, and we'll see you on the next video.